Brett, don't you do it. Don't do it, Brett. Don't you f***ing do it. You just had to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, internet, my name is Peridiam, and let's talk about hacking. Not what we just saw. Not that. Most of the time in Big Brother, the competition strategies seem transparent. The competition says I must roll this ball up a slope, so my strategy is, drumroll, to roll the ball up the slope. And that's what everyone does, and that's what everyone tells us in so many ways in the diary room. But with this video, let's give some kudos to players over the history of Big Brother who have used clever solutions to get ahead in competitions. Thinking outside the box or being creative, these are 5 different examples where players applied more unusual means to succeed.
I see an incline plane, and I see some balls that I'm trying to roll up it to the top. There's 2 forces that are really counteracting that ball. A friction force and gravity. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
First up, let's talk about a fan favorite competition. Let's talk about hide and go veto. You know, the one where the players must hide their veto chip or slab somewhere in the house and then everyone else must try to find them. Once 5 of the 6 chips are found, the competition ends and the player whose veto thingy has yet to be found wins the comp. This competition has been held 8 times as of this video, and the general strategy we see is to hide your veto in a difficult to find spot. The more obscure, the better. By the way, a lot of players default to the kitchen. Cereal boxes, the trash can inside the table if possible. And while you would think finding a good spot would be the clever strategy, it's not. In fact, it's the opposite. The hack for this competition is top of mind. It is a strategy originally brought to us by James from Big Brother 17 and 18, but fully developed by the cybersecurity man himself, Brett, from Big Brother 20. Both James and Brett utilized a remarkably simple strategy that paid off, particularly Brett, as he went all in. James hid his right underneath the carpet in the middle of the living room, and in Brett's case, he hid his inside of a pillow in a room. That was it. Not very clever at all. But when it was Brett's time to go into the house and begin to hunt down the other players' vetoes, he instead opted to play defensively, something no one other than James for a fraction of the time had ever done. Every round that Brett was allowed inside the house to search for these vetoes, he instead went right to his veto and piled stuff on top of it. He made it appear as if the room his veto was in was ransacked by other players, and then continuously went back every round to dump more stuff on top of his veto. James did a similar thing in his 2 seasons, but he only did this once and it never really seemed top of mind for him, more so just convenient. Brett realized this comp wasn't about finding the other vetoes. It was about not having yours found. It was about survival, being the last person standing. So instead, he just piled mattress after mattress after mattress on top of his veto to the point where it was so covered by stuff that it would take way too long for anyone to bother digging through. The other 5 vetoes, meanwhile, were all discovered in a much easier fashion, no matter how well they may have been hidden, and it just goes to show, defense does win championships.
I decided to take the biggest objects possible and stack them on top of my folder. Woo! Guess what, mattresses? You're coming with me. The only thing better than 6 mattresses is 6 more couches. Guess what, couches? You're coming with me.
Somebody has gone through the effort to take every mattress we have and stuff it in there.
Who did this? I looked in the pillows.
But not good enough. You want to know what wins national championships? Defense.
This next hack is a little bit shorter, but nonetheless, I want to give some credence to old school competitions too. At the final 5 of Big Brother 5, there was a veto competition called Caged. Each of the 5 players were placed into cages and were given the same random items to put together to form a giant stick, upon which they needed to grab a key to unlock their cage. The first player to escape their cage would win the veto. It's a lot like a recurring Survivor competition where players are behind bamboo gates and need to retrieve a similar key to unlock a set of locks. Now, Diane was working with Drew and Cowboy, and their objective was to throw the competition to Diane if they could. If she won it, she would save one of them from the block, and then the HOH's #1 ally would be the replacement and will get evicted. So, going into this competition, Diane needed to win, and the hack here was entirely based around social play. Unlike in Survivor, it wasn't against the rules for players to share items with one another if they felt like they could build a better contraption out of certain items. Bartering was allowed, and so Diane simply pulled together all of the longer items from Drew and Cowboy as they let her do that to form a sturdy enough stick to reach her key ahead of everyone else. She does this so quickly that it feels like the competition doesn't even last more than a few minutes.
If Cowboy, Diane, and I are going to make this happen, we can use our 3 putters and stick them together, and then Diane could somehow maneuver it through and hook her key and pull it in.
I understand Drew, but I don't understand Cowboy gave Diane their golf clubs. Seemed very weird and very odd, but you know, whatever.
And I was pretending I was working on my flamingo, knowing that I was not going to do anything.
I think both the girls looked confused, if more than anything. This.
2 golf sticks.
Golf clubs!
Oh!
She did really good. She's a creative little cat. Thank you, thank you. I'm not going to take full credit for that, but I did accomplish my goal.
To go back to Survivor, I can kind of see now why Jeff Probst didn't allow Sophie to take advantage of Albert's stack at the end of South Pacific to gang up on Ozzy, even though I think that was equally just as clever. The next hack is from a favorite competition of mine. It is Stayerfold. You know, that comp where you have to guess how many items are in front of you. But there's a lot of items and sometimes you end up being way off. In case you don't remember the rules of this competition, it's pretty simple. You see a lot of stuff and you have to guess how many of those items there are. Everyone then reveals their guess, and then you decide personally whether you want to stay or fold. If you stay and you're the closest person to the correct number, you get a point. But if 2 people decide to stay and go for the point, and you are the furthest of the 2, or however many decide to stay, you're eliminated. And if you fold, you don't get eliminated, nor are you eligible to receive a point. Play it safe, don't risk it for the biscuit. First to 3 points wins. Now it needs to be said that the first iteration of this hack comes from McCrae in Big Brother 15. He creates a great strategy that is nearly foolproof. The problem was it got taken advantage of by Spencer and was squashed at the last second. McCrae's plan to hack this comp almost worked. Until it didn't. But thankfully it did work the next season with Big Brother 16 with Christine, who used the same hack, the same strategy, and saw it to success. So while I will be using Christine's execution with this video, it needs to be said that this originated with McCrae 1 season prior, and he deserves all the credit for thinking it up. Right before this competition, Christine, being a super fan of the show, hatched a strategy in the event that this was the comp coming up. The basic idea is to give your alliance a fighting chance every round to earn that point. After you make your guesses, if 2 players from the same alliance choose to stay, one will get eliminated if nobody else stays. So how do you maximize your chance of not knocking out one of your own allies while also being in contention to win? Simply put, the hack here is that you create a staying order. In Big Brother 16, Frankie, Cody, Derek, and Christine created an order where every round Frankie would stay and the rest would fold. No matter how confident they felt in their answer, no matter how bad Frankie's guess may be, he would stay. And the reason for that is because it would force Donnie to have to stay too. If he doesn't stay, Frankie will get the point. And if he does stay, there is a chance that Frankie gets the point and Donnie gets eliminated. Now, in the actual competition, Frankie was eliminated in round 1, so the next guy in the order, Cody, began to stay every round. And for 3 straight rounds, Cody stayed, regardless of his answer, to force Donnie to play. But Donnie wasn't considering this strategy and thus believed that Cody would possibly fold to avoid being eliminated. Unfortunately for Donnie, he folded for 3 straight rounds, hoping that other people might stay, while Cody did stay, thus earning Cody 3 points and an easy win for the alliance. Obviously, if Donnie played more risky and had more confidence in his guesses, he may have stayed more often and possibly knocked Cody out earlier, but when playing this game the regular way with a healthy amount of risk aversion, as Donnie was, it's unlikely he would stay every round, which is where the strategy comes into play. It preys upon that, as Cody did stay every round, just as Frankie would have, or Derek, just as Christine's hack was intending all along.
Just like according to plan, everyone folds, but Frankie and Donnie stay. This is perfect. We could actually maybe get Donnie out the first round.
The strangest thing happens. Everyone folds except Cody.
Bingo, the plan is back on. Cody's our man.
Donnie and Nicole are playing completely scared right now, and this is exactly what I hope keeps happening. Keep folding, guys. You fold yourselves right out of the game.
Here's another small hack that took place rather recently. It is from Big Brother 21 in a competition called Eggscape the Coop, built upon by a more long-standing comp called Caged Eggs. We've seen this comp 7 times now, but the BB21 variant has only existed twice, both here and in Big Brother 18. You probably will remember this competition. It's where the players have to navigate an egg through a fence mesh with just their fingers, usually to set them in a series of holders. In BB18, the producers decided to make the competition more difficult by adding a ramp where the players would need to roll their egg down the ramp and then use it to launch the egg at a target, knocking it down. If they knock down all of the targets, they win. This little ramp made the comp a lot more difficult, more time consuming, and more frustrating as a viewer to watch. I think it took the Big Brother 18 players something like 2 hours to knock down 3 targets.
God! And then it falls off to the right or to the left. It's so frustrating.
But in BB21, Jackson, Christy, and Annalise were competing in the field trip comp, and Jackson easily crushed this ramp like it was nothing. As he was rolling his eggs down the ramp, he realized how difficult it was to control the egg in the direction that you want it to go. It's an oblong shape, like rolling an American football, and yeah, by design on the producer's part, it could have been a ball or whatever, but it's supposed to be difficult. But halfway into the competition, Jackson began to do something to his egg that made this rolling portion a lot easier. After navigating the egg through the mesh, and before placing it on the ramp to roll it, he would shake the egg to break the yolk. And what this did was even out the weight distribution of the egg. This would make controlling the egg as it rolled down the ramp a lot easier. It was more stable, and thus Jackson easily won the competition, well ahead of Christy or Sis. Jackson also wanted Christy to get third because that would get her nominated from this competition, and so he told Sis about this strategy while Christy wasn't looking, and she began to do the same thing, which also easily helped her finish second, turning her into a big chicken for the week.
But I realized that if I shake the eggs and mix the egg yolk with the white, the egg rolls straight forward, a lot easier.
Sis, how many you got?
Yeah, 2 down.
I'm 1000% trying to help Sis beat Christy.
And then lastly, the final hack is one of my favorites, if only because it spans almost the entirety of Big Brother history. One of the most classic veto competitions, arguably the most, we're talking about OTEV, Veto Backwards, a competition that began way back in the first All-Stars and has since existed in every season except, randomly, Big Brother 10. Not sure why that is, but there's a random piece of trivia. As of this video, we have seen 14 variations of the OTEV comp, and they're all basically played the same way. If you don't remember how this comp works, it's a bit like Duck Duck Goose. No, wait. Hide and go seek. No, wait, hold on. What's that game it's most like?
This competition is kind of like musical chairs.
This veto is like musical chairs.
It's a lot like musical chairs.
It's a lot like musical chairs.
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs.
Musical chairs. Musical chairs. Or Duck Duck Goose.
Right, I got it. You get a question and then you must scour the backyard for the answer. Every year this comp changes its flavor, from a picnic setting to a farmyard to getting shat on by a giant pigeon, but overall, it's the same idea, same execution. So I wondered, could it be hacked? Turns out it can be if you're good enough. The hack originated from Mike Boogie back in All-Stars, and it's simple, but it can be difficult to execute. Essentially, in the first round, after everyone runs to find the answer, Mike began to collect numerous answers and then created a bundle of them in the back of the competition. He hit his collection and every round would go back to it to see if he had collected the answer. Instead of relying on random chance, hoping to get lucky, he put in the work early to lay a foundation for a path to success. But Mike didn't win this comp. In fact, he was eliminated early, only getting 4th out of 6. And I think he had a few issues. The first being he shared the strategy with his allies, so they too would go and huddle around his pile to take advantage of it. The The second being that he placed the pile at the far end of the yard, meaning he had to run further to get to it. And because he didn't have every answer, he would run all the way back and then get unlucky and be in a bad spot. Over 10 seasons later, and we finally saw this strategy return. And yes, I went back and watched the tapes for all of those seasons. In BB17, we saw Steve unintentionally create a similar pile to Mike Boogie of answers right in the middle of the yard, which caught Austin's eye. Steve wasn't intending to use this strategy, which amused me so much so that I actually reached out to Steve just to confirm it wasn't intentional, because if it was, I wanted to give him credit. And he told me it wasn't. But Austin, and by proxy Liz, did use Steve's pile, did benefit from the pile, and one of them went on to win. Also, Becky tried to use the pile too, which didn't work, and led me to believe there was no way Steve intended for Becky, of all people, to have a leg up. 2 seasons later in Big Brother 19, we saw Mark use this strategy in the penultimate round. He was ahead of the other 2 players and decided to hide a pile he had formed to save for the final round. In the final round, he went back and quickly grabbed the correct answer from his dirt pile, and voila, intentionally used the strategy and won the veto at the same time. Game changer. But because he used it so late into the competition, I was curious to see if anyone would do this much earlier, and thankfully, someone did. I want to give kudos to one player who executed this strategy both intentionally and from the beginning of the comp, and almost pulled it off to win, and that is Kat from Big Brother 21. Kat did a lot of things right with this strategy, and despite not winning, it still paid off, and I'll explain in a moment what I mean. In the first round, Kat created a pile off to the side, but at the base of the ramp. It was somewhat hidden and very easily accessible. Love it. She compiled a bunch of answers, and this helped her quickly advance through the rounds. It was like you blink and you miss it. There she is, and there she goes, and there she is back at the top. It was the perfect strategy with a near perfect execution. The only problem was that she didn't have every single answer in her pile. I know, first world OTEV problems. And thus, the one round where she was missing one answer, one particular answer, she had to rely on random luck, and she scoured the yard and she did not get lucky and was eliminated. So if you're watching this right now and you get a chance to play OTEV one day in a future season, follow what Kat did, but make sure you find every answer first if you can find the time, and do it early. Also, I just want to say that Tommy won this competition, and his answer in the final round against Nick was grabbed from Kat's pile. So in some way, Kat did kind of win, at least as far as the evolution of this strategy goes.
I've watched enough OTEP to know that the best strategy in this game is to make a little stockpile of the items so that every round I can just go to that one specific place and grab the correct answer. Damn it, the Poison Ivy item is not in my stockpile, so right now I have to keep looking or else my entire game is going to be at risk. I know for a fact that I have the Haunting of Caitlin Herman in my stockpile, so all I have to do is run down and grab it. Easy peasy.
And that's it. Those are 5 times Big Brother players hacked competitions and, in most cases, won. There's a few more I haven't brought up, such as Paul with the doggy treats or Corey in the black box, but if you can think of any unique, clever strategies that rely on, thinking outside the box, let me know. Maybe I'll do a follow-up one day. Either way, thank you guys for watching, for making it this far. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me, for going even further. It means the world. Don't forget to spell Alliance the right way on your way out. And I will see you in the next one once I remind myself. Wait, hold on. Am I supposed to stay, or am I folding? I'm folding, right? Okay, I'm folding.
Down to the final question. Spencer, Alyssa, and Andy are all tied with 1 movie ticket each. Whoever wins this next ticket wins the power of veto. Alyssa, you've decided to fold. That means it's between Spencer and Andy for the win.
Oh. I should have stayed. I thought that...
There's no more rounds, baby.
I know. Well, that was really stupid.